Good evening and welcome to the Logan, Lacy, and downtown neighborhood residents. Thank you for joining us tonight and sharing your evening with us. This is the fourth meeting in a series of community meetings that the city is hosting through the month of May. The meetings are being conducted to get your input and feedback about the environment and the quality of life in your neighborhood, as well as other neighborhoods throughout the city. Your participation tonight will assist staff in finalizing our general plan update that will be considered by the City Council later on this year. We are also joined tonight by our Mayor, Mayor Sarmiento, who will be sharing information about the American Rescue Plan at the beginning of this meeting. After his presentation, we'll have a few minutes for audience feedback on ideas as well as questions. I don't see the list, but Margarita, do we have any other council members joining us tonight?
We do not have other council members on the call right now.
Thank you. If some do come up, if you let me know, I appreciate it. Before we begin our program, I want to introduce our staff who will be assisting us with the meeting tonight. We have Melanie McCann. She is the principal planner, and she's also the project manager for the general plan update project. We have Margarita Macedonia, our senior planner, and Ricardo Soto, also a senior planner, assisting with this presentation. Alyssa is going to assist us with all the technical backgrounds. And we have our two interpreters who does a very good job of interpreting in Spanish and Vietnamese, Mary Hernandez and Tu Vu. But before we start the program tonight, if Alyssa can go over some of the steps that participant can take to participate in the meeting, but also be able to get interpretation services if they need to. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So we do have Spanish and Vietnamese interpretation available. Once we go over the instructions on how to access that, you'll be able to see a little globe for interpretation, and then you'll be able to select either Spanish or Vietnamese. We also have the PowerPoint presentation available in Spanish, Vietnamese, and English. So you'll be able to look at the chat and select the link that Ricardo provided, and you'll be able to follow along this presentation in English, Spanish, or Vietnamese. Mary, can you go ahead and give the instructions in Spanish?
Of course. Buenas tardes a todos, bienvenidos. Vamos a darle la instrucción de cómo accesar la interpretación en el idioma de español. Si están usando una computadora, van a ver un globito en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Pulsen ese globito. Ahora van a ver la opción de español. Elija español, silenciar el audio original y simplemente ahí va a escuchar la interpretación en español. Si está utilizando un teléfono, van a ver 3 puntitos en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Elija interpretación de idiomas, elija español, silenciar el audio original y finalizado. Ahí va a escuchar la interpretación en español. And good evening to everyone who is participating. We do encourage that you select the English channel to be able to hear the interpreters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Go ahead too, if you can give the instructions in Vietnamese.
Okay. Dạ thưa kính chào quý vị. Hôm nay chúng tôi trình bày về cái đề tài gọi là quân bình về môi trường ở trong bản kế hoạch tổng quát của thành phố Santa Ana. Khi mà chúng tôi trình bày thì nếu quý vị muốn nghe về thông dịch bằng tiếng Việt thì quý vị nhấn vào cái quả địa cầu và quý vị thấy đề là Spanish hoặc là Vietnamese á. Quý vị nghe tiếng Việt thì quý vị nhấn vào chỗ Vietnamese thì quý vị có thể nghe được thông dịch viên tiếng Việt. Và ở trong cái chat á, tức là chữ CHAT là chữ chat á, thì ở trong đó chúng tôi cũng có những cái link nối kết vào cái website bằng tiếng Việt hoặc là bằng tiếng Mỹ để cho quý vị coi nghe, nhìn, theo dõi cái cuộc trình bày mà bằng cái gọi là những cái trang trình bày gọi là cái slides. Yeah. Cảm ơn quý vị.
Yes. Thank you too.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you too, and thank you, Mary. I'm always so impressed that you guys do such a good job interpreting the technical language that we have. At this point, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our mayor, Mayor Vicente Sarmiento. Please
Yes, thank you, Director Ty, and thank you to the planning staff that are going to be presenting a lot of really important information to you. I apologize for just dropping in, but I wanted to speak to you about this American Rescue Plan Act that I've been speaking to different neighborhood associations and other associations that have received this environmental justice presentation. So it's provided us an opportunity to go ahead and explain what the city will be receiving, and basically compelling some some feedback from the public, introducing the idea to the public, and really asking your support so we can make decisions thoughtfully and with your help as we start receiving these federal monies. But before I begin, and I want to give a shout out to our Spanish translator, Mary Hernandez. That was probably the cleanest translation I've ever heard. So good work on that end. I wish I knew Vietnamese. I'm sure we, just as effectively done, but good stuff. So thank you both for translating this. We know we have plenty of monolingual speakers that don't struggle with English a little bit. So to the extent that we can make this available to them, I really thank the planning staff and our interpreters for making this information available. So some of you may know that the federal government has been providing some stimulus support to different cities and local governments as a consequence of what happened during the pandemic, actually what's happening during the pandemic, and really the consequences that it caused in many communities. And they call it the American Rescue Plan Act, and it was about $130 billion that was allocated for help to restore some of these communities like Santa Ana that was very, very impacted. And we in Santa Ana have started looking at what we're expecting to receive, which is close to $143 million. And so we call that plan the Revive Santa Ana Plan. And in Spanish, that's Revive Santa Ana, which means a revival. And we hope that these funds, with your help, can help us not only get back to normal pre-pandemic, but can help us improve how we delivered services to the public. And we all want to make sure that we understand what priorities you have, what goals you have, and suggestions you may have. So that's really what tonight is about, is just to introduce the idea and hopefully to give you an opportunity to comment back to us later on. So go ahead, Margarita, if you could go to the next slide. And so basically what we have is a three-principled or three-element guidance on how we can use these monies. First of all, it's to respond to the public health emergency. That means continuing to provide vaccines and support to those who've been impacted by the COVID-19 virus. It's also to help backfill some of the funding that the city had to expend in order to meet the demands of the pandemic here in the community and backfill some of the revenue losses that we experienced. And finally, to also improve some of our basic infrastructure having to do with water, sewer, and/or broadband. So those are kind of the sort of the high level parameters that we've been given. We haven't been given the specific guidance, but basically everything that we expend has to have some sort of relationship or nexus to the pandemic and its consequences. So we've kind of outlined in our Revive Santa Ana plan these 5 principles that are going to be guiding our decision making, which is one for COVID recovery. As I said, the vaccines, but it's also testing, information, education, as well as assistance programs for those that we know are struggling and will continue to struggle, even in the aftermath of COVID with respect to businesses that have been compromised, folks that are going to have difficulty making rent, and other utility payments as well. And then thirdly, we want to see how we can tackle the idea of public health and safety that were, really highlighted during this time, to see how we can maybe improve that service delivery. And also, as I mentioned, the infrastructure improvements that are lined out by the American Rescue Plan Act, and obviously, returning the city's fiscal health to where it was, and hopefully, going on from there. So next slide, please. So, what we want to do is really hear from you, and that way the city council and the city manager and all those on staff will have an opportunity to understand and to see what priorities you have, what needs you think our communities have, and there are ways that you can communicate with us. Tonight, I know we're giving you very little notice, but you can do this after the meeting or when you have some time available. And you could do it, 3 ways that are shown on your screen. There's a website there that you can log on to and go ahead and share your thoughts with us. You can do it by email at revive@santa-ana.org, or you can text us at the number that's been provided for you there on the screen. And then finally, there's a way that you can go on to our website, the city's webpage, and take a survey and kind of give us some guidance on prioritizing, what those priorities are for you. But really, what I wanted to leave you with is this is a really important moment in the city's, in the city's journey to recovering. And it really is an important moment in the city's history, generally. We've never received an injection of stimulus funds to this degree. And so we want to make sure that we dedicate it correctly. What I do want to explain to you is that these monies were intended to revive and restore those neighborhoods, those zip codes, those areas in our city that were, were more impacted maybe than others. So it's not, hey, let's just spend it without any sort of, parameters. It is expending it in a way that we can restore those communities that were very, very impacted and businesses that were very impacted. So that's sort of our touchstone as to how I believe we can guide our decision making, is to make sure it's done on an equity basis. As we know, we've gotten familiar with that term when vaccines weren't arriving to the city. We saw that there were other areas that weren't as impacted that were receiving resources and vaccine, and we all banded together and said, look, you have to do this on an equity basis and make sure that you address communities that have been disproportionately impacted. And one of them was Santa Ana, and that's when resources started coming. Same sort of premise here, where we want to make sure that those parts of the city that were adversely impacted are helped to a degree that will hopefully restore them and hopefully make all of our city improve over time. So I'll turn it back to the staff and see if there's anybody that has any questions, brief questions now, but I know you have a really important topic that you want to cover. I just want to thank all the residents in the Logan, Lacy, and the downtown area for allowing me to kind of just jump onto your meeting just for a little bit, just to talk about this. I didn't want to take too much time, but as I said, I just wanted to invite you to share with us your thoughts and your ideas and help us make a more informed decision.
Thank you, Mayor. Margarita, I'm unable to see the screen on the audience. Can you assist with identifying anyone that has questions? But I just want to reiterate the message that the mayor just indicated. I mean, this is a very important part of the journey to recovery, and it's an opportunity for you to provide input into spending over $140 million. That's a lot of money to be spending on ideas. So please share your ideas, and you can share it tonight, or you can share it whenever you come up with the ideas by reaching us at the information at the slide in front of you. Thank you, Margarita.
Yes, so if there's anybody who has a question, well, we can take maybe 1 or 2 questions for the mayor right now. Please raise your hand, or if you want to type it in the chat. And if your question is not taken, we'll definitely relay that to our city manager office team. So it looks like we have 2 people that have raised their hands. So let's start with Paola Padilla.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor Sarmiento. My name is Paola Padilla, and I'm the director of the Santa Ana Early Learning Initiative. And I was wondering if you or any other city official would be able to reach out to either the Santa Ana Unified School District or other community-based organizations to be able to get this survey out to as many residents as possible. Our collaborative is currently working with 13 and is actually increasing up to 20 elementary schools across 6 or 7 different neighborhoods in the city. So I was just wondering if we may be able to connect and be able to get this information out.
Thank you, Paola. That is an excellent suggestion. I will make sure that our staff reaches out to, and I believe they may have reached out to Santa Ana Unified, but I know I've gone not only to neighborhood associations, but to some of our community organizations. I think that you're absolutely right. I think we should be speaking with our friends, you know, at Santa Ana Unified, as well as maybe those at Rancho Santiago Community College District as well, because we all share the same space. So I'll leave that for staff, and maybe Margarita, you can share that with, you know, with the city manager's office to make sure that the survey is forwarded to them. And look, I'm even happy to go and speak to some of our colleagues over there just to make sure that they understand the, you know, the importance of this. And because we're all representing the same, you know, the same constituency, I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you, Paola. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor Sarmiento.
So next we have Greg. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Greg.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Greg.
I was wondering if these funds could be used in part for the Bristol widening project, or have the funds already been allocated for that? I'm talking about the area from, I think it's St. Andrews near Edinger, going down towards Warner.
You know, great question, Greg. I think that those are Measure M $2, and Director Ty, you can correct me if I'm wrong. We don't have our public works staff, but I do believe there are monies coming in from OCTA and Measure M2 for the widening of that arterial. But, you know, the good thing is that I think these funds will help address some of our other arterials, because it does have a specific line item in the rescue plan guidance to address infrastructure, right? And so I do think we'll have an opportunity to make improvements to our infrastructure. They, you know, tended to identify, you know, our water system and our sewer system, as well as broadband, because they realized that broadband was something that was really lacking during this pandemic, that a lot of households whose children were trying to remotely learn were having some challenges, as well as people who were trying to work from home. So those were the expressly detailed infrastructure plans. But I do know for the Bristol widening, we do have some monies that we depend on from OCTA and Measure M2.
I know that the Measure M funds were supposed to be used for this, but I'm sure that you're aware that it keeps being put on hold, or that it keeps being delayed. The latest that I heard was that it's going to begin this summer, which is just a couple of months away. Are we on target? Is progress to begin soon, or is it going to be delayed again? We've been waiting for over 30 years for this.
You're right. I know we're getting there. Bristol hopefully will become the nicest boulevard in the county, but yeah, it has taken a while. Director Ty, do you know anything on the timing of things?
Yes. So on the timing, what I can do is connect Greg with our public works staff. I'll get Greg's information, contact information, and we will reach back out to Greg tomorrow to answer more of his question relating to timing, as well as specific funding. But as you mentioned, Mayor, funding is available, and it's a multi-year capital improvement project for the Bristol widening. So that is something that is in the works, and it's a part of multi-year capital improvement program.
Thank you. And thank you for the question, Greg. And look, let me go ahead and turn it back over to staff if there aren't any additional questions, just because I know that, you know, there is another subject matter that needs to be covered, and I don't want to take any more time away from that. I just simply wanted to make sure that everybody was, you know, introduced to this revived Santa Ana plan, and also to invite you to go ahead and share your thoughts and your ideas on how we can address things that or the consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic and the consequences to our residents. So thank you all. Thank you in all three neighborhoods for allowing me to address you. And I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Director Tai. Thank you, staff, for the help.
Thank you, Mayor Sarmiento, and thank you for joining us tonight. The next portion of our program is to go into the crux of tonight's meeting regarding the environmental justice discussion. At this point, I'd like to introduce Melanie McCann to provide you with information for the next portion of our program. Melanie?
Thank you, Min. And again, thank you for everyone that's been able to join us tonight. Before we go into the presentation, we're going to have Alyssa just give us a few points on how to participate after we give a brief presentation. Alyssa?
Hi, everyone. So there are a couple of ways for you to participate during tonight's meeting. We definitely want to hear your input. If you want to make a comment or ask a question, use the raise your hand feature. If you want to ask a question, you can also type it in the Q&A box, and we'll be monitoring those throughout the meeting, as well as the chat box. And those of you that are dialing in, I know I've seen one person that's calling in. Dial *9 if you would like to raise your hand, and then dial *6 to unmute yourself once we call on you.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you.
So the point of tonight is to actually hear from you, get your thoughts and suggestions on how to improve the quality of life in your environmental justice neighborhood. So tonight we'll be briefly providing some basics on what is environmental justice and how that ties into the Santa Ana General Plan update. We'll be clarifying what the characteristics are of environmental justice neighborhoods. And then most importantly, we'll be opening up for community discussion and feedback, and we'll be listening. So before we start into the brief presentation, we wanted to take a quick poll, and Ricardo Soto is going to assist us with that. Ricardo, can you help us out?
Sure, thanks, Melanie. So we're going to have about a handful of questions that we're going to be asking you throughout the meeting tonight. The first poll question, or questions I should say, has to do with how familiar you are with the topics that we're going to be discussing. So for the first question, are you familiar with environmental justice issues in your community? Second question is, have you heard of the city's general plan update? And both of those questions are yes or no. So we'll give some folks some time to read through those and the translation and to answer. All right, so it looks like we're still waiting on a handful of people, so we'll just give folks a few more seconds before we wrap this one up. All right, Alyssa, do we want to close this one out? All right, so it looks like a majority of people actually are not familiar with EJ issues. So the discussion tonight should be a learning exercise, I think, for all of us together. And then for question number 2, looks like it's split down the middle 50-50. Some folks have heard about the city's general plan update, and then the other half have not. So likewise, hopefully this is a learning exercise for all of us, and we have more of an understanding of the projects going on and what we're going to be discussing after this meeting tonight. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ricardo.
So Melanie, before you continue, I just wanted to acknowledge that we've received some comments on the chat and on the Q&A, and I know that Catalina has her hand raised, but we'll have an opportunity, perhaps following your presentation, to get that participation from Catalina and others that may want to contribute.
That would be ideal. It'll just be a brief, somewhat brief presentation. So if we could open up the discussion in just a few minutes, that would be ideal. So thank you. And as well, this the presentation is intended to those 50% of folks that weren't familiar with environmental justice or the general plan. It's intended to give everyone the same information so we can all be on the same level of knowledge as we have our conversation. So just the basics on what is environmental justice. So broadly, it's where there's communities that bear a heavier burden of pollution and health risks than other communities. And the intention of environmental justice is to balance that out and correct this inequity. So there's opportunities for a quality of life throughout. The Santa Ana General Plan, we've been working on it for the last few years, and it's intended to communicate what Santa Ana wants to be in its future. And we're looking to look in the future up to 2045. So it's a document, and the pictures that you see on the bottom are the different topics that are covered in the general plan. And each of these documents has policies and specific programs and actions to guide the physical development of our community, the quality of life, economic health, and sustainability of our community. The 5 words that you see at the bottom of the screen are the words and the themes that came up a few years ago when we started the outreach process on this. And so that became the guiding principles or the values that are communicated in each of these different elements that you see the pictures for. So that those values are culture, sustainability, health, education, and equity. So again, the updating of the general plan is a great opportunity to refresh our vision for our future. So in 2016, the state legislature enacted a rule called the Planning for Healthy Communities Act. It's also called SB 1000, and it requires when cities update the general plan that we just spoke of, that we look at our disadvantaged communities in order to mindfully reduce the unique health risks in those areas, that we promote community outreach and engagement of the community in the decision-making process and policymaking. And thirdly, that we prioritize, that the community prioritizes improvements and programs to benefit these disadvantaged areas. So again, what is a disadvantaged, or as it's known, EJ community? An EJ community can be a combination of factors. One is that area has a high risk of exposure to pollution, be that water, air, or soil, that their residents are burdened by unique socioeconomic or health issues, and or that they're located near freeways, major roads, or in some cases, industrial areas. So those are the characteristics that make for an environmental justice community. City of Santa Ana, like a number of other cities, used a tool developed by the state called the California Environs model. And the circles represent all the different indicators that were gathered, data was gathered. So on the upper left, you see a number of pollution burden factors. And then on the right of the slide, you see population characteristics. So these different characteristics were evaluated, be it exposure to diesel particulate matter, or for toxic release from facilities, or exposure to solid waste sites, or populations that might have a higher level of asthma rates, or on the socioeconomic arena, it might be areas that have a lower educational attainment rate or a higher poverty rate. Those are the different characteristics that were taken into evaluation. And the map that you see here is that data was pulled together for each census tract, and you can see the boundaries of Santa Ana. And the colors that are in the darker orange or red are those areas that have the higher burdens. Those in green have lower burdens. So the areas that are in the highest 25% a burden, those are considered environmental justice communities. So in Santa Ana, this area that you see in pink is what, using that particular tool, is considered our environmental justice areas. And there has been some recent proposed changes. They've been updating the model. And just recently, they've added a couple of other census tracts, which is identified in these yellow boundaries. And there's one census tract that actually fell out of being an environmental justice community. But as you can see, it's all the areas in pink are considered environmental justice or disadvantaged communities. So at this point, we're going to just a couple more minutes. We're going to have two more quick poll questions. And as you can see here, we've zoomed in on the 3 neighborhood areas that were invited to the forum tonight. Ricardo, can you walk us through those couple of quick questions?
Sure, Alyssa, if we can pull up the first poll question. So as we move forward with this effort and future efforts, we always try to improve how we engage with the community and how we notice folks about these upcoming opportunities to participate. So we'd like to know how you heard about this meeting tonight so that we know what's more effective and kind of funnel more resources to those tools that help get people out. So did you find out about this meeting through a flyer that was mailed to you, through a yard sign? Did you receive an email or a next door message? Was it through Facebook or Instagram, or through a friend or a neighbor? Or was it from an announcement that you saw at your church or organization, or through the city's website? Or if it was not any of those, if it was some other form or another way that you found out about the meeting tonight. So you got a little bit more than half of the folks have answered, so we just give people a little bit more time. All right, Alyssa, maybe we should give folks maybe about 5 more seconds and then we'll wrap this one up. Alyssa, want to wrap this one up? All right. So thanks everyone. It looks like the most or the highest vote getter was you received an email. So that's good to know. And then followed by a meeting or a flyer that was mailed to you. And let's see, the next highest would be friend or neighbor or other. So thanks for sharing that information. That's going to help improve our outreach efforts moving forward. And then we have a second question we'd also like to ask here about what neighborhood you live in. So on the screen, you should be able to see the 3 neighborhoods that were invited here today: the downtown neighborhood, the Lacy neighborhood, and the Logan neighborhood. And on the screen there, you'll see the boundary. So downtown is roughly from Flower to Main Street on the east and west boundaries, to Civic Center and First Street north and south boundaries. Lacy neighborhood is roughly from Main to Santiago on the east and west boundaries, and Civic Center and First Street north and south boundaries. And Logan is going to be Santiago Street or Penn Way on the western boundary to Lincoln Avenue, all the way up to the 5 freeway at the north. And the other options, if you don't reside in any of those 3 neighborhoods, or if you just don't live in Santa Ana at all.
Ricardo, this is Margarita. We may have some business folks from the downtown also on this call. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Margarita. All right, so we're just shy of the number of folks that have been answering the other questions. So we'll just give people a couple more seconds before we close this one out. All right, Alyssa, do you want to wrap this one up? All right, so it looks like 40% of the folks in attendance tonight reside in another or different Santa Ana neighborhood, followed by the downtown area and a three-way split between Lacy, Logan, and not in the city of Santa Ana. So thanks everyone for answering those questions and sharing that information with us. We appreciate that.
Ricardo, I just saw on the chat, Catalina is sharing with us that she's unable to hear the meeting. She typed it in Spanish, so I'm just double checking if she's connected on the interpreting, on the Spanish interpretation. So we'll sort that out soon.
So Margarita, you'll be able to reach out and help her?
Yes, I'm communicating with her right now.
Great.
I just wanted to make you guys aware.
Thank you. And this meeting will also be recorded so that it will be available on the website later. So again, thank you for your patience and participating in the poll, and shout out for those that did take the time to be with us tonight. So again, the opportunity with the general plan is that we're able to adjust our goals, policies, and actions to improve the future conditions of Santa Ana, particularly areas with the greatest need of help and protection, like the disadvantaged areas. So at this point, we're gonna open up the discussion, and to kick it off, we're gonna have Ricardo just do one more quick poll to see what are your priorities for your neighborhood, Logan, Lacy, and the downtown area. Ricardo, you want to walk us through that? And then
Yeah, sure.
Margarita will take it from there. Thanks.
All right, last question. What are your top 3 priorities at this point that the city can focus on to help improve the health of your neighborhood? Air or water pollution, roads, streetlights, and other public facilities, access to healthy food, housing and affordable rent, parks and recreation centers to promote physical activity, ability to influence city policies and programs, or quality education? All right, so this one probably requires a little bit more thinking on which of those are more important to you. So we'll give folks a little more time to read through those and answer this one. We're about close to the number of people that have been answering the prior question. So we'll just give people a few more minutes, or sorry, seconds, Alyssa, and then we'll close this one out. Thank you. So it looks like the top vote getter was housing and affordable rent, followed by air or water pollution. And rounding out top 3, looks like we had a 3-way tie between roads, streetlights, and other public facilities, parks and recreation centers to promote physical activity, and quality education. Thank you everyone for providing that information. Really appreciate that.
Thanks, Ricardo. Margarita, were we able to sort out the communication? Perfect.
Yes. Catalina is connected. So, and thank you to our interpreter, Mary, in Spanish, who's also provided instructions to remind people how to connect.
Perfect. Good. With that, I'd like to hand over the meeting to Margarita, and she'll facilitate the conversation so everyone can share their thoughts. Margarita?
Yes. So thank you. I just first wanted to acknowledge the neighborhood representatives that we work with to help get this meeting information out. wanted to acknowledge Denise Reynoso, Joaquin Martinez from the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and also some of the businesses from the downtown that are joined on the call. Mr. Jose Leal from Lacy and the other residents of Lacy. Wanted to thank the staff just again getting the word out. And also from the Logan neighborhood, Sam Romero and Joe Andrade and other residents that are joining us tonight. So yeah, this is the part where the city is very, very interested in listening to what are your priorities. You've provided us an example of that, but we really want to hear what your experiences are regarding environmental justice and what that means to you and recommendations that you have for the city. So we can move on to, do we have a next slide? Oh, yes, thank you. So these are some priorities that we have outlined so far in our draft documents, reducing exposure to pollution. Well, you have it all there. But the point is, you know, we do want to take this opportunity to hear from you. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by, I have Catalina, she's raised her hand for a while, and now that she's able to connect, let's hear from Catalina. Catalina.
Sí, hola, buenas tardes.
Sí, buenas tardes.
Sí, mi pregunta es con referencia a la justicia ambiental. Que lo que necesitamos como ciudad y como comunidad es que nuestra ciudad esté libre del humo del tabaco y de segunda mano, porque en estos tiempos de pandemia se han agudizado malas enfermedades respiratorias. Entonces, como residente de Santa Ana, me gustaría que tomaran en cuenta mucho esto, porque realmente está afectando muy gravemente a nuestra salud, a nuestros hijos. Necesitamos que escuchen esto, porque realmente se está llegando a un punto en que pues realmente nuestros hijos se están enfermando a muy temprana edad de sus pulmones, de sus vías respiratorias. Entonces, es una preocupación muy grande como residente de que tomen en cuenta de que esté libre del cigarro y de segunda mano.
Okay, deja ver, Mary, would you be able to help us in
I do interpret. I
Okay.
interpret simultaneously, so I do advise the panel and all participants to join the English channel. That is where I do interpret. I toggle
Okay.
between. And I can do it if anyone didn't hear, but I do encourage that you go ahead and select English channel team. That way you're able to hear the interpreter.
Thank you, Mary. So now I understand what you wrote on the chat. Thank you.
Yes. And
Okay.
I will just go ahead and give a brief interpretation because I did interpret simultaneously. But for those that didn't hear, Ms. Catalina is concerned about the secondhand smoke, the pollution, tobacco in the air, the smoke from tobacco, and it has increased the illnesses in respiratory tract. It's affecting the children. It's affecting all of those around us. And that is a very big concern for her and her community.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
So another reminder, just as Mary was typing in the chat, if we have any monolingual Spanish speakers on our call, know that Mary will interpret it simultaneously. So just click to the English channel. All right, we will go to our next attendee, Joe Andrade from the Logan neighborhood. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Marguerite. This is actually Michael Andrade, another Joe's son. Yeah, I mean, the pollution, the amount of soot, the amount of dirt that we have in this neighborhood is, you know, is really bad. I've had a number of family members that have been ill, a number of kids with respiratory issues. I sorry about that.
Okay.
And, you know, yesterday I was washing my car and the amount of smoke or soot that I found on the vehicle is just, it's mind-boggling. And this is from the crematorium that we have here. Also a facility that I have across from my house, where there's bins and other trucks. I mean, it's just, if something is unhealthy, you know, it's our location right now. And it's been like this. And, you know, we've spoken up quite a bit, and I, you know, want to thank for this opportunity to communicate and to express ourselves. I think this is kind of leading in the right direction. But, you know, something needs to be done soon, because it, you know, I've had a number of family members that have cancer, that have other illnesses, and I, you know, kids, you know, children that have had cancer, and I'm saying that it would probably be because of the pollution that we're inhaling on a day-to-day basis. I thank you for letting me voice my concerns and what I see on a daily basis. And I hope that something does change, and something does get corrected before, you know, before someone else does pass away.
Okay, well, thank you, Joe and Michael, for sharing your concerns, in particular with the Logan experience. I'm going to go ahead and we'll take one more hand raised, and then we'll go into the comments shared on the chat. So Rocio Guzman is next. Go ahead, Rocio. Rocio.
Sí, hola, ¿me escuchan?
Okay, habla español. Okay.
Sí.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
go on the English channel, everyone. So, okay. Okay. Sigue, Rocío. Continuamos.
Sí. Pues yo antes que todo, ¿verdad? Pues apoyo, ¿verdad? Lo que estaba diciendo mi compañera Catalina. Es muy cierto con respecto al humo de segunda mano. Yo vivo en un área de que a pesar de que están los signs puestos donde dice que no se tiene que fumar ahí cerca, o sea, de lo que es en mi área. Yo vivo por la calle Mini Street. Aún así la gente fuma bastante. Fuman abajo en el parking y todo el humo del cigarro sube a lo que es, ¿verdad?, en la ventana. Aparte, pues hablamos, ¿verdad?, también de lo que es el ambiente con respecto a lo que sale con respecto a las fábricas, ¿verdad? Yo vivo en unos apartamentos que solamente me divide un parking, un estacionamiento, ¿verdad? Las vías del tren, y está otro estacionamiento, y entonces está la fábrica, y no sé ni siquiera qué es lo que trabajan ahí, ¿verdad? Y desafortunadamente durante lo que fue la pandemia, se supone, ¿verdad?, que nos encerramos en casa, por decirlo así, ¿verdad?, para resguardarnos y conservar nuestra salud, no estar tal vez en ese riesgo del contagio que en ese tiempo fue lo del COVID-19. Estuvimos en casa. Nosotros no hemos sido de familia que nos enfermamos constantemente, mas sin embargo, estando dentro de casa, pues ya era más tiempo, ¿verdad?, estar las 24 horas del día ahí adentro. Respiramos más el aire que se despide a los alrededores. Mi hija resultó con cáncer en la tiroides. Mi otra niña con lupus. Uno de mis hijos con mucha alergia en lo que son los ojos, siempre irritados. Y mi otro hijo con irritación y en lo que era la piel, con muchos granos. Mi esposo con el problema de siempre tener problema de garganta, cuestión que, como les comento, no hemos sido personas que nos estamos enfermando constantemente. De hecho, pues hasta la pediatra de mis niños, ¿verdad? Se sorprendió de ver que por qué se estaban enfermando así y a esa gravedad. Se estaba hablando de un cáncer, como les comento. Entonces, ha sido difícil y sí, de verdad, yo quisiera saber qué hay en esas fábricas, qué es lo que despiden esas fábricas y por qué estamos tan cerca. Si esos apartamentos no son aptos para vivir ahí, ¿por qué nos dejan, verdad? ¿O por qué permiten que entremos a vivir ahí? Y aparte las condiciones de los apartamentos donde yo vivo, tiene aproximadamente 1 año y unos meses que se remodelaron y nosotros pues seguimos en las mismas condiciones, ¿verdad? Con la infestación de insectos. Ese es mi comentario, así que quisiera saber si nos pudieran ayudar, porque por no nada más es mi familia, somos muchas, no sé si algunas estén ahorita presentes, que vivan también por esa área, y que nos pudieran brindar ese apoyo, porque pues también está cerca la escuela, en este caso es la escuela Kennedy, y pues las fábricas están demasiado cerca a la escuela, ¿verdad? Entonces ojalá y nos pudieran brindar ese apoyo, y pues gracias por escucharme.
Gracias a usted, Rocío. Y sí, de esto se trata, de escuchar a las experiencias y gracias por compartir eso. Okay, so we are going to, let's go to the chat. Ricardo, I see that you're responding to the chat. Is there,
Yeah, there's a couple comments. There's a comment
Okay.
from Oliva Mendez Gutierrez asking about we should do as a city something more to enforce or control the sale of marijuana. She has neighbors that smoke close to the areas where there's children or minors, and that's unacceptable. She lives in the Delhi area, and when they start to smoke, they need to go and close their doors and windows to prevent the smoke from going in. And then we have another comment from Kelly stating that they're in the Lacy neighborhood and they're concerned about the street trees being removed from the neighborhood as part of the OC streetcar construction with no timeline for replacement, and being as though the Lacy neighborhood is an EJ community, there shouldn't be removal of trees. And that's it, Margarita.
okay. All right, so let's go to, on the Q&A box. So did Alan ask that question on the chat about the road work?
Yes, Alan asked a question about when will the road work end. I let Alan know if he had particular questions about any specific road work to let me know what road work he's asking about, and I can put him in touch with the Public Works representatives to get him a timeline to see when that's going to end.
Okay, great. And we'll do the same for Mr. Greg. All right, so let's go back to the hand raised. Marisela Castro. Marisela? Hi,
Sí,
Marisela.
buenas tardes.
Sí, buenas tardes. Okay, let's go to our English channel for those to tune in. Okay, continúa, Marisela.
Ok. Yo vivo en el vecindario de Lacy y referente a la justicia ambiental, quiero que se corrija bien, que sea justicia. Sobre el basurero que está cerca de la escuela Garfield. Nosotros hemos tenido muchos problemas y hemos hablado con la ciudad referente a este tema, y este tema no ha sido de hace poquito, ha sido de hace mucho tiempo. Entonces, yo no sé cómo podrían hacer para que nos hicieran caso referente a esto, que también ahorita sobre la pandemia, porque los estudiantes están en casa, no ha habido problemas, pero hay veces algo que yo no puedo captar o no puedo yo comprender cómo las personas que han ido de la ciudad dice que quieren como un testimonio. No podemos traerlos a las 6, 7 de la mañana cuando nosotros salimos a caminar o cuando los hijos han ido a la escuela, que ese olor es tan penetrante que afecta a nuestros estudiantes. Entonces yo me pongo a pensar, ahora que regresemos a la escuela, ¿cuán va a afectar a estos estudiantes que regresen? Y la verdad, ese es un olor demasiadamente desagradable. Entonces yo no me gustaría que regresaran los alumnos a a la escuela y volver a repetir la misma historia. ¿Qué piensa hacer la ciudad referente a este basurero? Que no es un tema de que apenas se ha estado hablando, hace mucho tiempo que se está hablando, y me gustaría que tomaran en cuenta esto, a la opinión de nosotros los residentes. Gracias.
A usted. So, Min, the property she's referring to is the Madison Materials site. So. Okay, Ricardo, I'm going to turn it back to you on additional comments, concerns shared on the chat.
So we have a comment from Denise Reynoso stating that she's from downtown and she's been getting feedback about dirty water coming out of the faucets, and that the plumber told them that it's due to sand in the lines, and also that it's very difficult to use the local parks due to safety concerns. And we have another, I'm not sure if she's restating, or another comment from Paola stating Mrs. Guzman is commenting about the pollution of the factories along the southeast corridor of the city located on Grand. There should be more transparency on how these factories get permitted to pollute so much and how the city allows it. It has affected her family's health directly. She also supports Catalina's comment about secondhand smoke.
That's definitely a theme that we're hearing a lot tonight. I saw that. Michael, did you have I saw your hand raised. Michael Andrade, were you going to add anything? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe or Michael.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
This is Joe.
Okay, Joe.
For what that poor lady said about Madison, I think we have the solution. If they would start changing that, the runway for the, what's it called? The trolley, and go down 4th Street like it was suggested to before, come down and go into the train station, you could get rid of Ware. Or let's say Ware owns Madison. Madison would be gone, and there goes the pollution from that area, which gets Logan also. So, I mean, they should think of changing that trolley and going that way, and you'd get rid of a lot of problems for both places and downtown. As far as the pollution coming in, I mean, if you see our little triangle, we're got streets on each side, big main streets. We got the street, the freeway. We also have Santiago. And right in the middle, we have a bunch of little construction companies and plumbers, Ware disposal. So, I mean, they're just killing us. And it goes along with what Michael said about all this stuff. I mean, we can't even go wash our cars because within 2 days it's dirty. And all this is coming from all those industrial on the other side of the freeway too. So, you know, I agree with that lady. And I think we should see if we can't change the tracks on that thing and go right through Ware, come into the train station, and it'd be feasible. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have anybody else who would like to raise their hand before we go into the chat follow-up messages? Somebody who perhaps has not spoken. Let's see, how about let's hear from Lacy from Mr. Leal. Are you still on the call? Or from Joaquin from Elite Fitness, Joaquin?
Hello.
Yes, hi Joaquin. Hi Joaquin, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. I'm enjoying the discussion. It's really, really interesting. Let's see, what can I add? Just looking at the bullet points, one that speaks out to me directly is increasing physical activity. For many reasons, just because we have a lot of sedentary people nowadays because of the situation we're in, where we're working from home. But even before that, it's something that's been kind of like my banner for a while, just increasing physical activity. Since the pandemic hit, I had to move my group classes outside, and I do it in the 2nd Street Promenade. And it's been going really well. We're getting a lot of new people that haven't heard about our gym, and people that haven't heard, that don't really come down to Santa Ana. Social media has brought them down, and they're doing really well. They're affordable, but maybe we could do something where this money that's being allocated can go to, paying the trainers, paying us, and we can provide these classes free for the community. Classes that will help not your gym goers, the gym rats, but the people that don't know anything about fitness, that really don't have a handle on what kind of safe fitness things to do, mostly mobility stuff and cardio, getting the heart and lungs stronger. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Okay, so this is more of a listening. So what we're hearing is that you would want to see, as part of this, strategy, for our general plan environmental justice, is to see some resources for programs to encourage more physical activity, physical fitness at a neighborhood level.
Absolutely.
That's what you're recommending. Okay.
Absolutely.
No, this is great. And then obviously, if you have some more kind of short-term funding, what the mayor shared at the beginning, that's like another way to get some of that immediate support to do that, again, at a neighborhood level. So
okay. I jumped in like towards the end of his talk, so maybe I missed something there.
No, this is great. So thank you, Joaquin, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, so we have our interpreter too. She has her hand raised, so go ahead too. Do you want to, let's see. You might have to go to the to turn off the Vietnamese to be able to share, or we can go ahead. Switch out to the English if you want. Okay. All right, so 2 is on the English, so we can tune in on the English. Go ahead, 2. Okay, so we'll go back to okay, so 2 switch to English. Go ahead, 2. Speak in English if you had a question. Oh no, you raised your hand. That's why I'm going to use. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry everyone. That was a little distraction, but 2 accidentally raised her hand. So we're gonna lower her hand and continue with the meeting. Ricardo, I'll turn it to you for the chat.
Sure, we had a couple comments, one in Spanish by Alicia Salgado. I'll translate. There's no equity or environmental justice in our communities. Century High School, Kennedy Elementary School, Madison Elementary School, Via Fundamental, are surrounded by factories, 42 factories. It's an industrial corridor. They're making our children sick. They are the future of Santa Ana. We also have another comment by Kelly. And it says, also in Lacy, we have entire streets you can't walk down because homeless individuals camp out during the day, leave debris when they leave, broken glass, etc. Every day when I walk my dog, I have to dodge broken glass. And Alan also provided a comment, why can't they build their factories in Irvine or Newport Beach and move it to Santa Ana? Let's see. Maricela Castro provided a comment in Spanish as well. This is also Lacy residents. They don't want changes being done to the streets, reducing the streets. A couple other Spanish ones. Maybe we can go back to the Spanish ones so I can read those through Margarita and translate those a little better. And then there's another question or comment by Tabitha. I agree with more activity, but I'm sometimes concerned with walking and jogging because of the camping on our streets.
Okay, so that's bringing up the concern about homeless people or encampments in the area. Okay. So we're gonna go back to the hands raised, and we have Yahaira Hernandez. Go ahead, Yahaira.
Yahaira. ¿Sí me
Yahaira.
escucha? Ok,
Sí.
buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Yo quiero hacer un comentario respecto a la seguridad. Como aquí en el área, en el vecindario donde yo vivo, ha habido mucho robo. Ya uno se siente como insegura porque aquí en la área de los apartamentos entran mucho a robar. Ya de hecho se abren los carros. Es como que es muy inseguro de que a muchos aquí vecinos de mis mismos apartamentos les han abierto sus carros y ha habido mucho robo. Y pues yo pienso que fuera como que hubiera más seguridad en estas áreas. También yo vivo por la calle de la Lion Street y también está el puente. Hay mucho hombre, debajo del puente tiran mucha basura, mucho graffiti. También está cerca una fábrica que es de metal. ¿Cómo podríamos saber nosotros si están contaminando la tierra, como el mojo que nos puede hacer? No podemos saber si eso nos puede causar enfermedades también, porque está muy cerca de aquí de con nosotros. Esa era mi pregunta, que sea como haya más seguridad, porque sí ha habido mucha inseguridad.
Entonces, eso es su recomendación, es su comentario acerca de su experiencia con el medio ambiente.
Sí.
Okay, so I know that we have the interpreter, but that is the lens team that she's sharing regarding, for her, that's what the environment means in terms of more security because of the activity that's been happening in her neighborhood by Lion Street. And she has a question, perhaps Melanie, after when we're wrapping up. We've gotten several questions throughout today's meeting regarding how people can find information about some of the factories or the industrial businesses operating in the area. Okay, so I don't see any other hands raised. Ricardo?
Sure, we had two of the Spanish comments that I wasn't able to read when came to me last time. I can read those through. The first is from Catalina. It says, listen to our concerns, listen to their community concerns. And Maricela Castro provided a comment stating, this will make total chaos when the students return to school. If they want to reduce traffic, that will work. On the contrary, they will make total chaos and more when there is rain and there are always floods. With all these changes, it will not work. So maybe she's referring to the construction is what I'm thinking, because the line of conversation in chat seems to kind of touch on the construction going on, but I can ask to clarify.
Yeah, it might be tied to if it's the schools that were mentioned in the southeast area, it might be tied to some of the other businesses there. But thank you, Ricardo. We have Louis Vasquez. Go ahead. Sui Vasquez.
Hi.
Go ahead. Hi.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, nice. Hi, my name's Sui Vasquez. Is there a way that we could somehow start promoting maybe like homeowners to start having like a more California like native greenscape rather than having like a traditional like grass lawn somewhere in their house?
That's what you're recommending, Sui, as a policy or just a recommendation?
Yeah, so maybe somehow work that into like into maybe like some sort of incentive where if owners remove their lawn, the city can somehow like subsidize some part of like the removal of the grass, or maybe like the addition of the greenscape that's more California, maybe some a little more drought friendly.
Okay. Did you have any other recommendations or any insights from the neighborhood that you're in regarding environmental justice? This is a great recommendation, by the way. I just want to, since you haven't participated before, I just wanted to give you a little more time also.
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's this other concern I have. So I live right in the downtown neighborhood, right on the corner of a First and Flower. And there's always like this this facility like right across the street from where the San Ana boys, that's always emitting like some sort of like gas, and like sometimes it gets so bad like it kind of looks like kind of foggy when I'm out because of how much like emissions it produces. So I'm not sure if that's like
which business, can you clarify which?
Well, right now I'm looking at Google Maps right now.
Yeah.
And the building is labeled as the Orange County Jail Booking Research Locator.
Okay.
It's right there, right on the corner of Flower and 6th Street.
Okay. We have that noted.
And yeah, that would be everything actually for me.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the time.
Excellent. Thank you, Sui.
Margarita, if I could jump in really quick, the last comment that I read from Maricela, just to clarify, she was speaking of all the construction going on the street as it relates to some of the issues it may cause when kids go back to school and then we start having rain events.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Maricela. I have also, let's see, I saw another hand raised. Oh, never mind. And I see one more comment on the chat, Ricardo, from.
Yes, it looks like Leticia Moreno is stating that she lives off of Warren and Lyon, and she's concerned now that residents are being more exposed to secondhand smoke, specifically from people smoking marijuana. And it says that people smoke wherever, or she wrote that people smoke wherever, and thus people are not going out on walks anymore to avoid the folks that are out smoking in public.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Leticia. So we'll take one more hand raised and then we'll turn it back to Melanie, our team leader. So Thomas Morrissey, go ahead.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have business in downtown, and I think the previous caller hit on an important point. Creating incentives to resolve some of these issues. Issues I see are that have been pointed out already: clean air, affordable water, and I think something that hasn't been mentioned that might help resolve something Joaquin was concerned about is a more walkable city. So that would help get people out, get them exercising. So if we can work with our state and federal legislators to create incentives to, capture some of these pollutants at the source, work on ways to keep our water affordable, and incentives to repair our sidewalks, make them accessible. Higher percentage of people nowadays are, our population's getting older, and a higher percentage of people need those curb ramps and level surfaces to just make our city more walkable and more enjoyable. Get people out and enjoy all those trees. So those are my comments.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, Melanie, we will turn it back to you. And go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Margarita, and everyone that's here with us tonight. I was going to just provide 2 examples of implementation actions that are presently in our draft general plan, just to give an example. And the things that we hear tonight and the other environmental justice meetings, we'll be looking to refine these kinds of actions, but let me just walk you through this particular one. So this one is in our land use element, and it's to change our zoning code development and what we call operational standards for industrial zones to better address the incompatibility there is out there with some adjacent uses. So in essence, that could translate to having a certain amount of distance, a required amount of minimum distance to buffer industrial uses from some of the sensitive uses that we've heard about tonight, be it schools or residents or care homes. And then with this action, if council were to adopt it, we're committing to conducting a study that would evaluate and establish a specific minimum distance, potentially landscape buffers to better mitigate the impacts from industrial uses to residents, schools, daycare, et cetera. So that's one example. And then the other example is some of the folks tonight were asking about where to get information about some of the industrial uses in their area. One of the actions we're proposing is to have a team of city interagency staff at minimum that would monitor and evaluate air quality and environmental hazard issues. And the second part of it, the sentence here, is to publish information on the city's website through a dedicated location. And at that location, we could provide information on where are those industrial businesses that have an air quality permit? Where are those industrial businesses that the Water Quality Board is tracking, so that we could have a location that everyone could access and we could communicate that type of information in a more direct fashion. So those are just 2 examples. And so again, some of the things that are brought up tonight, we'll go back and look to see if there's some additional actions that might help address what was mentioned tonight about different incentives and the different issues that were brought up tonight.
We have a call, a hand raised by Paola, Melanie.
Okay.
Or maybe Paola.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for bringing up that the last slide and about the conservation element. And I was just wondering, have you connected with Madison Park Neighborhood Association Green Team? Because they have been doing this work to address air quality in the city, and especially along that southeastern corridor. As a matter of fact, on Thursday, they had an Earth Day event where they had a lot of volunteers, especially from Madison Elementary and across the neighborhood, in order to check what the quality control was of that area. So I'm just wondering, since South Coast Air Quality Control, AQMD. I just remember the the acronym. Right. South Coast AQMD. Yes. Yes. I know they post that, but I guess my question is have you connected with MPNA Green, and in order to kind of cross connect some of this work, because there's residents that have been connected to this work for the last, I want to say maybe 8 to 10 months, at least since I've been connected to them. That's it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. We definitely have been in communication with Madison Park and all their good work. And that would be another opportunity to, on this portal, this web location, to share their information as well. As it sounds like you're aware, they've got some grant funding to actually put out air quality monitors in the neighborhood to better gauge the air quality. So they're doing a lot of great work. And so we would want to share that with the community and provide a link on our city website to let others know of their events and their activities and their good work. So thank you for bringing that up.
No, thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure that that everybody was kind of interconnected, because I think a lot of it has to do with resident input, especially the hardest to reach populations, with which a lot of the comments that were made in Spanish were from residents that live along that corridor. And so I think it's very important that we continue to have these conversations that are resident led. And as I mentioned in the chat, it's about spreading the word to those hard to reach populations that are not necessarily getting this information. And I can just say, when I received the information, I kind of tossed it in my recycle pile because I didn't know what it was. And then when I was going through my recycle pile, I realized what it was. And that's how I got a hold of these community forums. And I've spread it to the parents that work or have been doing work with the community-based organization that I am a part of. So thank you so much for the time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Glad you made it tonight. So with that, we'll kind of wind down the meeting, and I'll just walk through the time frame. So as was mentioned earlier, we're conducting outreach meetings through May and through the end of May. And then with that, we'll take the comments and we'll refine the general plan document and the actions that you saw examples of. Then we'll bring back the general plan and what we have heard to our planning commission for a work study session later this spring. And then the goal would be to have our revised general plan EIR released in summer, and then have public hearings and and have some level of adoption by the end of the year. So again, for those that got the flyers about the notice tonight, you probably also know that we have a survey as well that's available online. It's in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. If you know of someone that is not electronically savvy as much, we're happy to provide hard copies as well. So if you can let folks know that that's available. And there's lots of information on our general plan website, more information about environmental justice, the draft general plan, and a lot of information. And then we have our email and our phone number if anyone has any questions or suggestions that they think of later that they'd like to share. So with that, we want to just thank everyone for being here tonight. And we've written down all your comments, and we're looking forward to incorporating them as best we can into the general plan. Again, if you'd like to keep informed on future meetings as the plan progresses, please feel free to either phone or email us with your contact information, and we'll keep you involved in the conversation.
Min, did you want to say some final words?
Yes.
Director.
Yes. Thank you everyone for attending tonight's meeting. I know the issue is very important to you as you are sharing your evening here with us today. Many issues that you talk about, we have heard and will continue to hear from our residents, and it's really being heard by us as well. And we want to make sure that many of these issues get into our general plan and become a part of long-range policy for making change and making positive change in our city. Joe, I just want to recognize that, while many of your comments are great, one thing we couldn't really do is with the streetcar. Unfortunately, that one I believe their alignment has already been selected and they're under construction. So I hear you, Joe, and I understand, but unfortunately on that particular one, the Orange County project development has basically moved forward. So thank you for that. But the rest of your comments are great. Want to really appreciate your night and evening with us today. And with that, I'd like to say good health and good night.
Great. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.